All right, we are live, and I've started this 3 minutes early because I wanted to get this out to different wedding sites, so more people get to see it. We started this, the wedding show, and we're talking about, of course, weddings. There's a lot of questions. I belong to different wedding groups. I've done thousands of weddings
I'm
over my
trying
lifetime.
I'm trying to find where you posted it.
I've got it on YouTube, Dr. Kelsey Graham. I've got it on Facebook, Dr. Kelsey Graham, and I got it on my main Facebook account.
Okay. I'm trying to get to it. Just give me a second.
It just showed up live just now. It takes a minute to propagate through the system.
I know, and it's
You go,
taking my phone a minute to go through everything.
okay, you just keep on. I can keep talking, okay?
Keep talking.
So where we are is we started this, and there's a lot of questions, there's a lot of vendors out there. There's a lot of new vendors out there. There's a lot of choices, and there's an amazing amount of choices. There was one person that posted today about needing a DJ, and I mean, within a couple of hours, there must have been 20 or 30 responses that quick. How do you choose these vendors? What product are you going to go based on? Oh, my cousin Joe used this one, or there are questions to ask that are very, very important. And those are what we're going to do. Some of these questions will kind of go across the board with no matter what vendor you're looking at. So you can gain from everything that we're going to talk about here on all these shows going forward. Tonight, we're specifically talking photography. Photography ends up being a very important part of most people's weddings, and it sometimes ends up being one of the most expensive parts to a lot of people's weddings. So keep that in mind, and we're going to teach you the questions. Number one, the questions you as the client, the couple, should ask, and the questions that should trigger professional photographers to be prepared, because we have seen it all. Now, I'm going to say, every time I say I've seen it all, I see something else, right? We've seen
correct.
all kind of stuff happen, and a lot of people get screwed out of photography. A lot of people get screwed out of a vendor because they did not ask the right questions. They did not CYA. And if you're hiring a vendor, these are the things. It's 8 o'clock. That was the time the show was starting. And so my name is Dr. Kelsey, and next over here.
I'm Catherine Marie.
And we are wedding professionals. I want to tell you, I never planned in life to be a wedding pro. This came to me. I've done weddings throughout my life. Later in life, it became a thing. And so inadvertently, I'm now very much into weddings. We do weddings every weekend, and more often than not, we do more than one wedding on the weekends. And some weddings are during the week. Thursday, we do a lot of Thursday weddings. So we've got a lot of experience. We've learned from that experience. We've learned from the things we did. Just the bottom line. As an officiant, there's one thing that I learned that scared me horribly. I'm human. I was out here by myself, and people were booking me to officiate their weddings. And the thought of what if something happened to me? I've got a deposit I've taken. These people are depending on me. I'm human. I can get sick. I can have some trauma. I can die. And then I become a problem to that couple's wedding. And that really bothered me. So that's why I networked. That's why eventually this lady came on board right here. And we've tried a variety of other people, and we don't keep them all. If they don't fit the mold of our professionalism, the way they present themselves and the way we serve people, we will not let them stay on board with us because we have a level. We want to, as they say, exceed our clients' expectations. We're not looking for satisfied customers. We're looking for raving fans.
Bingo.
If you look at our reviews, which are listed on our website, they're posted mostly on weddingwire.com, you'll see what we're looking for. And that's what we strive for. I was trained to serve. My father was a minister, old school minister. That's the roots I came from. And that's the way we do things. We do not we don't work by the hour. And I'll start right there with photographers. DJs do the same thing, but we're going to cover DJs another day. Photographers will book, but of course, you need to kind of have an idea how much time you're going to spend at somebody's wedding. But there's a way to determine that. And it's the way you determine how much time you're going to spend at somebody's wedding is not based on what the bride tells you, because the bride don't do weddings. She's saying, oh, well, the ceremony is going to be 20 minutes, 30 minutes tops. Reception is going to be 4 hours. And as far as they're concerned, I've had people contact me to officiate a wedding. We just need you for 20 minutes. It's like, are you kidding? I'm gonna talk to you to see what kind of ceremony you want. I've got to write a script for the ceremony, and then I've got to drive to you, and I've got to drive home. It's never just 20 minutes. Now I take that back. I've had people come to my office, and it was literally maybe 20 minutes, but usually it was still more like an hour. So bottom line is, realistically, and I promoted tonight's show based on knowing the right questions to ask. I learned way back in my days, first starting university, back when I had hair on my head. One of the first things that I was told to do was to buy a little book called What Smart Students Know. And it's still in print today. And the summation of that little book is smart students know the right questions to ask. If you are serving people, if I'm serving you, no matter what you're doing, you've got to know the right questions to ask, to know what you're getting into, what it's going to take to satisfy the client, the couple, whatever. So there's people that post on these groups. Hey, I need anybody. Well, there's one today, for instance. Anybody know a venue that I can get on a Sunday for somewhere between $500 and $700? And it's like, well, there are possibilities, but what people are not thinking about is, and you can tell a true professional photographer versus somebody that's just whatever. They're not really in business. Maybe it's a hobby to them. I don't know what they're doing, but I can't give you a price and be professional until I know, when do you need this? What time of day do you need this? How many guests are you going to have? Why do I need to know the number of guests? Well, if there's 100 people there, it takes longer to round all these people up. It slows down getting to the reception for pictures of the first dances. The number of people does slow the process down. I'm sorry. Okay. How many's in the wedding party? Does that make a difference? Of course, how many in the wedding party makes a difference if you're a photographer, especially. Why?
Yes. Because you want to get a picture with each bridesmaid with the bride and the groom, each groomsman with the bride and the groom. These are important things to know.
Mm-hmm.
So, takes longer to do those photos.
Well, you got. It's not unusual to see 6 and 6, 6 bridesmaids, 6 groomsmen. That's 12 people you got to get together, make sure they're dressed. The girls got their hair done, blah, blah, blah. There's been weddings. The ceremony's been late because the makeup person was late or the makeup person took longer. So all that has to be taken into consideration. What about the reception? Are you doing a cake cutting? Are you doing a bouquet toss or garter toss? Are you going to plan a exit with sparklers or bubbles or whatever? All that has to be set up. It takes time. Do you need the photographer to stay till the end of the day? When we price out a photography job, we plan on staying to the end of the day.
Correct.
We know that most cases of most weddings, the reception, because they're renting a venue, is usually going to be over by 9 or 10 o'clock. We also know from experience that the
Hmm.
earlier in the day the ceremony is, the earlier the reception is going to end.
Correct.
And usually the same is true with older couples. If the couple is already in their 50s, they're usually not going to party as hard and as late as couples that are in their 20s and 30s. Usually, there's exceptions.
There are exceptions.
Now, first dances. So it's traditional to have a mother and son dance, a father and daughter dance, and of course the couples dance. My last wedding was it Saturday night. My
Yes.
last wedding. Both families had some interesting things going on. Both sets of parents were divorced. So you had two mothers, two fathers on both sides. So there was more dancing going on. And then there was the groom wanted to dance with a little girl. I don't know whose little girl it was. I didn't get that involved in who she was. But that affects the pictures, the photography. Now, is there anybody that is invalid, in a wheelchair, can't walk, has special needs, those kind of things? Because you've got to think of where you can stage certain pictures to include them in the pictures. They're not going to be in all the pictures, but in family pictures. We had one instance at the castle where the day of the wedding, where they're doing the before pictures, first look and whatnot, the bride broke her ankle. Okay,
Correct. She did.
that kind of changed the scope of everything. It slowed things down. The bottom line, and again, another big thing: kids. Kids will slow it down. I'm sorry, but they're hey, you got to chase them down. You got to control them. Some kids are well behaved. Some of them are not. As the vendor, I don't know whether your kids are well behaved or not. I don't know whether the kids are going to be easy to round up or not. I've got no way of knowing those things. And so but if I know there's kids there, then I can kind of have the mindset that that's going to slow my process down.
Hmm.
So all those things, a good vendor is going to be asking all these questions if they're going to give you a good price. Now I see some people without ever talking to the couple, they'll post, I need a photography on August the 12th at such and such a marina, blah, blah, blah. And, and right away you'll get a handful that'll say, I'll do it for $400. I'll do it for $500. You don't even know what the person wants.
No,
How you
you
going to price?
don't.
So that alone is going to tell you whether this is truly a professional, experienced photographer, or whether it's just somebody that's been to Best Buy or Amazon, ordered a camera, and they're trying to get themselves to be a photographer, something like that.
Correct.
All right. So those questions are very important to me, even as a wedding official. I want to know because I do get calls. Hey, Dr. Graham, we're getting married on such and such. It's just right over here, and it's just us and our kids. I used to get that a lot.
I also have a big thing. Is alcohol being served before the wedding? That is a big thing because that will slow your pictures down big time.
It can affect the quality of your pictures, especially with a groomsman.
Yes.
And we've seen it with a bride.
Right.
I'm not against drinking. I'm not in the
No.
judging business. But if we're going to serve you, the more we know, the better we can serve you. And we can also cover our own butts to cover our time and cost. So it can make a difference if there's alcohol. There was one time the father escorted the bride up to be married. I'm officiating the wedding. He is drunker than drunk. They about had to pull him away because I called him up there and I said, who gives this woman to be married to this man? And he wouldn't shut up and he wouldn't leave.
He would not.
So that it can become an issue.
It can.
Most of the times it doesn't, but it can interfere with photography and the flow of the whole thing. So yes, photography does, in most cases, becomes a very expensive part of a wedding. And photographers, again, you can get a $300 photographer. You certainly can. You can also get a $5,000 photographer. And chances are you're going to tell a huge difference in what you're getting for that money. Now,
There's a difference.
A huge difference. Um, most of these guys are going to place a time limit. They're going to say what time's the wedding, what time are you going to be there, and usually the photographer's working on a timeline with the bride, saying, "Well, your ceremony is going to be at 2, so I want everybody there and ready at noon, and I'll start taking pictures. Are you going to do a first look before the wedding?" You got to make these decisions.
Correct.
You got and this is something else I talk about a lot. Most of these weddings and pictures are what I call cookie cutter. So it's not like there's a lot of uniqueness going on with most of it. There was one photographer maybe this year, at the castle that was a second or third generation photographer. These guys there stood out of all the photographers I've worked with. And some of these photographers are pretty good. Catherine's good. Okay. No argument there. These guys, they were over the top, award winning. These pictures I'm talking about, you blow your mind away. I watched them work. They had the pictures ready by the next morning. You know why they were able to get those pictures out by the next morning? Is because they were not Photoshop experts. Yep. They were photographers.
And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with Photoshop artistry, but it takes longer than a professional photographer would.
So keep in mind a couple of things as you're looking for a photographer. A camera does one thing. One thing. What does a camera do?
Captures light.
Yeah. Now, there are buttons you can push to affect the aperture.
You can manipulate that light.
That's that. From the camera itself, not in Photoshop. Lighting is everything. That, and guess what?
What?
Framing the shot.
Oh.
If you've got the shot properly framed and you got the lighting right, it's good right off the camera. 9 times out of 10. If you know what you're doing. When I saw the work and I watched these two guys and they told me their history, they were like third generation photographers. I'm not talking about hobbyists. I'm talking about their family was award-winning photographers. These guys were trained by family and trained right. They had the equipment, the knowledge, and everything going for them. When I saw those pictures, I was blown away.
They were phenomenal.
And I have seen a lot of wedding photographs. I've seen a lot of photographs, period. These guys, I have no clue what they charge, but I guarantee you didn't get them for $500-600. I can guarantee you that. So keeping that in mind, if you've got a low budget, if you've got a budget that don't allow you $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, there's another way to go about this. There's another way to get your pictures. First of all, I've seen fantastic photography come from a cell phone. I've known of a photographer that got the entire wedding captured on his iPhone. Fantastic pictures. I have personally taken some fantastic pictures with my Android. Really amazed me how you could never know that I use my freaking cell phone.
One of the top photographers in the industry, Jason Lanier, he has shot several weddings on an iPhone, and they were phenomenal.
So there's another way. Everybody at a wedding has one of these, even the kids, right?
Yep.
So I'm going to assume that everybody knows what a hashtag is. If you want to save money and get all the pictures you want and more from your wedding day, you provide a hashtag for all your guests and let them take pictures and post them. You tell them, I want to post it on Facebook or I want to post it on Instagram. You tell them where you want it posted. And then to grab those pictures, all you got to do is go to the search engine and within that social media and do that hashtag. And it's going to pull all those pictures up. So if your name is Frank and Sue Smith, you can hashtag Frank and Sue Smith wedding. And if everybody hashtags accordingly, you'll get those pictures. Now, that's not uncommon. And then guess what photography costs you? What did photography cost you?
Nothing.
Bingo.
And here's another suggestion for you. If you want the professional photographer photos, you can do before the ceremony, during the ceremony, and after the ceremony. And if you want at the reception to not have the professional photographer there, you can do the hashtags. There are there
There,
are there are
mhm.
instances where, okay, you don't have to have the professional photographer for the entire thing because it can get expensive.
All right. So you can say, I just want you for some before pictures, and
Hmm.
I want you. Anyway, now here is some samples of how people are using hashtags. And the reason I'm showing these is because nobody's going to understand that. Everybody gets into this fancy script stuff, and it loses it. That's a little bit better. The hashtag is rushing wedding. Okay. But it doesn't tell what it's for. So somewhere or the other, you've got to communicate with your guest what you're doing. They need to
Correct.
know what you expect and why you're doing this, how to use it. That's another one. I just think personally for the script writing, you're trying to accomplish something. This should not be for looking good. It should be to share the information. And I think that's not your hashtag here. It takes a minute to read that. Make it easy for them. Let me show you one that I think. There you go. Your hashtag. Block letters. It gets the job done.
Hmm.
Okay. But you see this right here?
It's too much to read.
Right there. Cocktails, blah, 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 blah. It don't even tell you meet the coons. Well, you know, some people don't have a clue. Okay, meet the coons. Which direction am I going to meet them? Whatever. So all these things come into play to make your wedding go smoothly. The end of the day, you got one chance to get it right.
That's correct.
There's no do-overs.
Nope.
All right. There's a couple of big things that we haven't talked about yet when it comes to not just a photographer. And we're going to cover this with every kind of vendor that we go through in the weeks to come. Guess what? You've hired a photographer. Did you get a
Hmm.
contract? Number one, know what to expect. You can save a lot of money by not ordering prints up front because once you get the digitals, you can get prints made online, Walgreens, wherever you want to go. You don't have to depend because if the photographer deals with it, he's going to charge not only the cost of getting the print, he's going to charge for his time of getting the print.
Correct.
So he can save money, just say, give him the digital negatives. Okay.
Correct.
And then you can get prints as you need them because if you might put one on your wall or your desk, but a lot of people don't even put it on their desk anymore. They have a digital frame. You never pull it. I haven't. When's the last time you saw somebody pull out a wallet and say, "You see my wedding picture?" No, it's always on these things. Let me show you.
Yeah.
Yeah, there it is right there. Look. Oh, wait a minute. There's baby girl too.
That's
Okay.
because everybody has one of these things and it's
So
readily available.
so we don't. It's a different world.
It is a different
So
world.
you can get anything done with photography after you get the digitals. Okay, it's
Correct.
called digital negatives. They're just digital pictures. So that goes back to the contract, the agreement you have with your photographer. Number
Now
one. Go ahead.
I'm not saying that Walgreens is bad, CVS, Walmart, whatever, but there are also professional developers
Yeah,
of these
I
pictures.
just threw out a name. You can go wherever you want. You can do them
Yes.
online. There are companies online that you can send them a picture and they'll make an oil painting out of it.
Yes.
So you can do whatever you want to. You can have your pictures put
Correct.
on coffee mugs, on your T-shirt, whatever.
Yes.
Bottom line is, where I'm going with this next is you need to make sure up front that your photographer is not old school, think they're still dealing with real negatives and in film, and try to be possessive of your photos and try to lock you in a contract where you don't own your own pictures. Those days are passe. This
Yes.
is the 21st century. You are commissioning them to take your pictures and you own the pictures. Make sure that is clear up front. I'm going to throw in something else, and I hope that you're paying attention. Any of your vendors, maybe not the caterer, but the DJ, the photographer, these key components to your wedding, make them come to the rehearsal. Make them come to the rehearsal. I'm the wedding officiant. I go to the rehearsal. The DJ should be there so he can practice with the music. He don't have to bring his whole system. He can do it on his iPhone, whatever. The photographer should be getting some special pictures and also not every ceremony is the same. I know some of these photographers think, well, I'll say I've done 5,000 weddings. I know what. Believe me, we've done weddings that were totally different than anything you've ever seen. They even did a maypole and all this interesting stuff. So make sure your photographer knows all the components of the ceremony very carefully. Make sure they know what's taking place. I've talked to photographers that didn't have a clue what we're doing during the ceremony, and they didn't even have a clue what was going to take place at the reception. I say, do you know they're going to do the shoe game? And the photographer saying, what's that? Do you know, really? They don't know about any of this. It's just all this assumption stuff. Don't go on assumptions. Write it out. Ask questions. Educate your vendor. You want a good price? You want a vendor that's going to serve you well? Give them details. Don't sit there and say, how much you going to charge to do my wedding? It's at 5:00 over at Bob's Barbecue, and there's going to be 3 groomsmen and 3 bridesmaids, and yeah, we're going to have a short little reception afterwards. You know, there's people that don't even give you that much information. There's people that just say, you know, we're getting married on the 17th. How much you charge? Tell me about your wedding. Okay. And I don't understand. I tell you, I'd be very concerned about photographers that don't even want to know the details of the wedding. Just,
I would be very concerned.
I'll do it for $300. I'll do it for $500. What are you going to do? Then you're going to bitch because they kept you till 1:00 in the morning because you didn't ask questions. Okay. Smart people know the right questions to ask. Don't go in guessing, go in knowing. Also, keep in mind, these photographers are like DJs. They go by the clock. I've seen them, not all of them, but I've seen them. And the majority of them is like, you got me for 4 hours. I'm getting there at 1:00 and I'm leaving at 5. You need me longer. You're going to pay me $200 an hour. Know about this stuff up front. If granddad gets caught in traffic and makes the ceremony late, you're going to pay for it.
They do.
Okay?
They do.
So,
and 200 is cheap to an hour.
Point is, know all this stuff up front. And the problem is I've seen it with a lot of brides and a lot of vendors too. You can tell who's got experience and who's not because they're not thinking details at all. They're not. No. They're not asking any questions. I see it every day. I'm getting married in August and I need a photographer. I don't have much money. I see that all the time.
They do.
Okay. All right. Where, when, how many, you know, all this kind of stuff. But no, I'm concerned about the vendors that can just pop up and say, I'll do it for $400. $300. It's like an auction for weddings, you know. $300, $325, $350. You know.
I mean, yeah. I'll shoot my whatchamacallit, my website out there, but probably not going to accept that because I need to first, I need details before I'm going to accept a wedding. Lots of details, and
we live in a fast food era, and that's the problem we've got. And it's the difference of going to McDonald's drive-through versus going to Ruth Chris Steakhouse, I guess.
Correct. And it was delicious today.
Anyway, bottom line is that you go through there and I want a Big Mac, fries, and a large Diet Coke. Well, they got this menu. That's what you get. Wedding's a little bit different than going through McDonald's drive-through because what these couples do have to realize is that you are the boss. You're paying these people. This is 100% true. What the vendors have to realize is that if you want to be successful at what you're doing, you need to know something before you price it. Or you're going to get yourself in a lot of trouble. You're not going to like what you're doing. Unless you don't need the money and you're just doing it for the fun of it, that's cool. You know, I don't know many people that can do that, but if you're one of them, that's cool, man. Go for it. Okay. Another big question. I don't know if anybody's taking any notes or not, but another big question you need to ask as the couple, as the bride, whomever's doing the hiring here. What happens if you, the photographer, get sick, have trauma? What happened? What's your backup plan for me?
Do you
I've
want to know
seen.
mine personal?
No, I'm not asking you.
Okay.
Okay, I want to cover this. We're really not using this show to sell our own services. We're trying to educate couples, and I think vendors can learn from this too. So I'm not
Correct.
trying to make this into a self-advertising type thing. I really want to educate people. I've seen many times a photographer, something happened at the last minute. They got no backup
Hmm.
plan. I can't make it. I've actually had a photographer, my car broke down.
Yes.
Okay. No backup plan. Had another photographer. She was one of my brides. She wanted to be a photographer. She went out to Best Buy and bought a camera. Did
Yeah.
and shows up at the wedding and the camera didn't work. Only had one camera and the camera didn't work. Had another photographer that had more than one camera. It was a hot August Alabama summer. She left her cameras in her car with the windows up, and the card melted in her
Melted.
camera.
Yeah.
So you are the couple. You need to ask some questions. If something happens to you, who's going to cover this? You don't want 3 days before your wedding. You don't want to say the photographer say I can't make it, and you say I want my deposit back. That's no good. You want to say who's going to cover this,
Yes.
okay? Because 3 days before your wedding, I learned, well, I'd already worried about it, but I really learned a lesson a few years ago in Coleman, Alabama, as the wedding minister. The bride called me the week of her wedding. Her minister died. Stuff happens, man. This is real life. How many cameras you got? People worried about lenses and all that stuff. No, forget that. How many cameras you got? If one of them goes bad, if something screws up,
Hmm.
what's your backup game here? Okay. That's very important. What's your backup plan? What happens if you can't make it? What happens if you end up in the hospital? My wedding is right here. How am I covered? Because if my wedding is on Saturday and you end up in the hospital on Thursday night, what do you expect? I'm less worried about getting my deposit back. I'm more worried about who's going to take my pictures.
Correct.
Okay. These are questions you should be asking the photographer you hire. What's your backup plan? Says, oh, ain't nothing going to happen to me. Yeah. Last word. Those are the last words of a lot of people in their grave right there. Trust me. Nothing going to happen to me. Yeah. Croak. Ah. Yeah. It happens. This is real. This is life. Weddings are not something you just do over. It's not like just
Yeah.
saying, oh, we want to do family pictures in the park. That's a whole different program. You're spending a lot of time, money, and effort to organize, plan, and stage this wedding, this huge event in your life. What are these vendors doing? No. Majority of time, nothing does happen. I get that.
Right.
But you might be that one, and we've seen that one many times over the
Answer.
years, ended up with no pictures,
Yep.
or ended up with, that's all they got, and couldn't even get a deposit back, you know? So what do? Cover it up front. That's what you do. Ask the right
Yes.
questions up front. Don't wait till the problem happens. Solve the problem before it happens. They always say an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. The prevention is ask these questions up front. Oh, Mr. Bob Photographer, wow, your portfolio of pictures looks real good. You got all these brides you serve. Wonderful pictures. But Bob, what happens if something happens to you? Very important question. How many cameras you got? Okay. Also, brides, as you're going into this, you can turn it all over to your photographer, or you can take control of it. You can tell them what kind of pictures you want, or you
Correct.
can just say, well, I just want the standard photos. If you want just the cookie cutter photos, you'll get the cookie cutter photos. If you look and you know enough about the photographer, some of them are very creative, and you don't have to ask. They're going to do interesting things. I know from our experience that the more we know about you and your personalities, the better we can do your pictures. If we
That is
take time to
correct.
consult with you and we know your quirks, your interests, and that sort of stuff, then we can show your personalities and your uniqueness in those pictures and in your ceremony and all the way through. But we have to get to know you. A lot of photographers don't take the, it's whatever. I mean, that's up to you, but you're paying for this. Remember that. You are paying for this. They're not your boss. You are their boss. A lot of
Having a,
wedding vendors do not like me. Keep that
they
in
do not
mind
like us.
because I'm taking care of the bride, the couple.
I have another suggestion, Dr. Graham. When you're looking at their portfolios, I want you to pay attention and I want you to ask them, is this a real wedding or is this a stage shoot? Because there is a
Mm.
difference in shooting a stage shoot and there is of shooting a real wedding because there's more pressure at a real wedding. And
Well, not.
also, you have a lot more pressure to do that. And a stage shoot is just that, it's a stage shoot. You have all
Well,
the time in the world.
they'll even stage the ceremony itself
Yeah,
with somebody filling in as the preacher, the minister, the officiant, and you don't know it's staged.
right.
What makes the difference is that number one, it's staged, and they can stop and pose it 15
Correct.
times. It's not like the ceremony is ongoing. It's acting like it's ongoing. It's not
Correct.
like they actually got to exchanging rings. It's like, oh, that didn't turn out good. Can we redo that? You can't do that during a ceremony.
You can't do that during the ceremony.
Also, people steal pictures from the internet and
Correct.
use it on their portfolio.
Yes.
So, in business in general, a good thing to do, number one, do they have a lot of reviews? And if the reviews are on their website, that, you know,
Eh,
if you get the reviews and they're on a site like the Knot or Wedding Wire or something, you can't fake those reviews.
no.
Okay. So you got to be careful even with that. How many reviews do they have? All right. Um, so the bottom line is that a lot of times you'll know somebody that got married. You'll know that they've used this photographer. You'll know something about them, and that's good.
Mhm.
You'll say, okay, they're good. You've already seen the pictures they took at that wedding. Maybe you were a bridal in the bridal party for that wedding, and your picture's even in that group. So you saw that photographer in action. You still need to ask those questions. What are you going to do if something happens to you? Okay. Now, I know a lot of these guys, they are sole operators. A lot of them just have their girlfriend or wife coming along with them. A lot of
Correct.
women have their husband coming along with them. What if something happens to somebody? You need to know that. In fact, you need to know that for all your vendors. I've seen the food not show up.
Yes.
Just had a wedding past weekend where the cake wasn't going to show up. Okay. And we've had DJs that didn't show up. I did one wedding at the Birmingham Botanical Gardens, no DJ. I'm there officiating the wedding, doing the music on my phone with a little Bluetooth speaker because their DJ didn't show up. And I'm doing it like this. He shows up after the ceremony. So I'm
Yes.
sitting there saying, okay, need to stop that. And yeah, really. Yeah.
We've had DJs that do show up and their equipment doesn't work
Well, more than once. And
more than one time.
we even at one place we do a lot of weddings. There, you know what it means when your laptop goes blue screen. That means it goes into that update mode, and you never know when it's going
Correct.
to freaking happen. We've had that happen
Correct.
right before a ceremony, and it's like, how many laptops you got? You got more than one laptop? No, I got a good laptop. It's a new laptop. Ain't nothing wrong with it. My laptop's good. Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. Get the 100-degree sweltering Alabama weather
Heat.
down on your laptop, or let it go blue screen, or
Let
whatever.
let a shower come through that you're not expecting.
If you
It
if
gets
you
wet.
if you think a new laptop can't give you problems, go to Best Buy to the Geek Squad and see how many new laptops they're working on. Okay,
Correct.
so that's a big question to ask. What are you going to do? What's your plan? A professional is going to have more than one laptop. Okay,
That's
a lot
correct.
of and in today's world, I'm going to DJ, so I'm going to back out of
I
that.
know.
Okay, let's back out of that. We're doing
Back out of
photography
that. We're
tonight.
doing photography tonight.
DJ's going to music's another night, but the same thing. You got more than one camera. Actually, have had a photographer that filled up their card and didn't have any extra cards.
Yes, I've seen that a lot.
Oh,
A
well,
lot.
that's all the pictures I can take because I got no more memory. Are you kidding? And you call yourself a professional? But see, you, the person paying this bill, you, the person hiring them, you can resolve this up front by asking the right questions. That's the point I'm trying to make this whole show tonight. Knowing the right questions to ask. And most brides don't, because most brides don't know much about weddings, except they've been in one and they've seen a few or whatever. All the things that can go wrong. We'll get into even catering. We'll talk about that another day. But some of the things I'm covering here with photography can be on any level with any of the vendors. What's your backup plan? What happens if something happens to you? Okay, what time? Make sure you're okay. Number one, if I'm hiring vendors, especially the photographer and the DJ, I want to see you at the rehearsal.
Correct.
Oh, well, I don't come to rehearsals. Okay, bye. I've talked to somebody else. Okay, you control it. You're writing the check.
Mm-hmm.
You're swiping your debit card. Fine. You don't come. I don't care how good you are. If you don't come, I want you there. Number one, I want pictures of my rehearsal as part of the wedding process.
Correct.
I want pictures when we get together. What happens at a rehearsal dinner? They give speeches.
Mm-hmm.
The family's there. It's a more intimate, relaxed deal, and there's more personality a lot of times to it. And you don't have your photographer there. That's up to you. But these are things I would want. If I'm throwing this big wing ding of a wedding, I'd want to document this all the way through. It'd be important to me. So now, with all that said, I want to add this, and then I'm going to let her talk whenever she wants to talk. I got a lot I want to get out here real quick. Most components of a wedding are what we could call luxury items. Okay? The wedding itself is a ceremony officiated by a person and normally getting some paperwork done to make it legal with the state. That's the actual wedding part. The rest of it is what? The rest of it is a reception. Really, the rest of it is what the Bible would call a wedding feast. So there's a difference between the wedding and the wedding feast. All right. The most important part of a wedding is the ceremony, because that is the wedding. A reception is not the wedding. All right. Keep that in mind as you're planning your wedding. That's a celebration of the wedding. Okay. That's what they call a reception. The wedding is that 20 or 30 minutes where you're standing up there and overdressed in hot weather, and you're standing there holding flowers, holding hands, changing rings, saying I do. That's the wedding. The reception is not the wedding. It's a wedding feast. All right. There are people that actually have the wedding and no reception. Okay.
That's correct.
Now, as she pointed out earlier, you can hire a photographer just to take pictures during the wedding. Okay. So that all your guests can be tuned in to the ceremony. You can actually have somebody going along with their cell phones taking candid pictures before the wedding. Okay. So you can limit your expense of a photographer.
Correct.
All right. By going another route. The more people you allow to do pictures with this, the more opportunity you're going to have to get some great pictures. because even if you hire a good photographer, they can't capture everything. But if everybody's got one of these, you're getting all these shots. Think about that too.
But here's also something to think about. A lot of photographers in their contracts state that people cannot use cell phones during ceremony.
That could be true, and I do unplug a lot of weddings. But
Correct.
I'm going to remind right here again. Maybe you're going this direction, ladies, brides, grooms. You're the boss,
Yes.
not the photographer. If the
Correct.
photographer puts rules on it you don't like, just say bye bye. I'm going somebody else. I don't like your rules, so you control it. You don't have to eat at Chick-fil-A if you don't like their chicken. Okay, it's that simple. You go to the Colonel, whatever. The point is like it's your money, it's your wedding, not theirs.
Correct. And a lot of our brides do not want to see big iPad Pro right in the middle of the aisle during the ceremony. Someone standing up with that. They don't want to see the anything like that happening. So they do unplug the wedding. Do people know what unplugging the wedding is? Could you explain that, Dr. Graham?
Yeah, you take this cord and you just unplug it. No, unplugging the wedding is simply that no pictures allowed. Turn devices off during the ceremony. The photographer don't want to see the back of your iPhones and blah blah blah. So if they've hired photographers, the photographers are normally a very expensive component of the wedding. Sometimes
Right.
they're one of the most expensive parts of the wedding. Show courtesy to that. Turn your cell phones off. We don't want them ringing or dinging during the ceremony. And we don't want to block photographers and videographers with the back of your phones. Be 100% tuned in during the ceremony. Social media is here so that we can share pictures. So you're going to get pictures of the ceremony, okay?
Here's
Uh,
another here's another thing, Dr. Graham. Your videographer, along with your photographer, it is great for them to know each other and have worked together before, because a lot of times they're both trying to get the same exact shot, same exact action. So are you going to? You don't want them mashing up with each other and neither one of them getting the right shot.
what in my role at weddings, there were like this last one on Saturday night. There was the two videographers and two photographers. I told the videographers straight up, work with the photographer. Don't get in his way, okay?
Yeah. Um,
And
Practically,
I also, not all ministers, not all officiants, not all celebrants do this. I
yes,
always take time to go over with the photographers and videographers the components of the ceremony so they know what to look for. So if you're at a wedding to take pictures, if you want your photographer and videographer to get the best pictures, have somebody brief them as to the components of that ceremony.
correct. A
Who's
good
going to be?
planner, a good day of director does that too.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Okay.
uh,
um, but make sure they can mesh together and they work well together, because sometimes there is a little bit of a friction there, and you don't want that during your wedding day. It's very important that they do get along and they have worked together and they are able to both get the shots that you want, because it's all about you.
You're the boss. I cannot
You are.
emphasize that. I've seen brides. I know. And here is one reason for doing this show is to educate brides because they go in blind. They're depending on vendors. Well, the photographer knows what the photographer wants to do. The videographer knows what the videographer wants to do. The caterer knows about the food. Each one of them has these different components. But and some people hire a wedding planner, wedding director. Some people don't. Believe me, I've seen wedding directors, planners go the whole scope of whatever. The problem we have, especially in Alabama and Mississippi, in the Southeast, is we got all these people that are living in this bubble. They can't see outside of tradition as they know it.
Correct.
And not everybody falls into that bubble. So I've seen uh, a girl that every rehearsal would go to. as we would start, she would say, Dr. Graham, you want to open a prayer? And I would always say, ask the couple, because I have served couples that I knew did not want a prayer. So you get a lot of these wedding planners and wedding directors that are so much in this bubble that they can't see outside that bubble. Okay? Believe me, we've done a lot of themed weddings. Most people that know me knows that I've even done a wedding at a nudist colony. Yes, a nudist wedding. Was Kelsey nude? I'll never tell. The point is,
That was BC before Catherine.
the point is not everybody lives in that bubble. If you're not in that bubble of just strict tradition, conservative tradition, I'll say it again. You are the boss of your wedding, and you have to make certain that you control your vendors and they're not controlling you. Even though they are professional and supposed to know what they're doing, unfortunately, a lot of them are caught in this bubble and they can't see outside that bubble. I've seen some wedding directors at rehearsal get so pissed because the bride wanted it another way that she would sit down and do this. Just shut down because she didn't get to do it her way. Like, baby, it's not your wedding. It's this girl's wedding here. But she copped an attitude because it didn't go her way. It's like, you think your wedding. I'm here to serve you the way you want to be served. I used to say on my business cards, your wedding, your way. And that should be the philosophy. So just keep that in mind. I want to cover, go ahead. You got anything you want to say real quick? I think she's locked. She is shut down. Is it me or is it her? She is frozen in time. I don't know what happened here. Is that me that's frozen or her that's frozen? Okay, well, okay, it must have been her. All right. You are the couple, the bride. It's your wedding. Some people are religious. Some people are not religious. Some people are atheists. Some are agnostic. Some are Hindu. Some are Jews. There's a variety of culture. There's a variety of ways to do things. Most people, the majority in our situation here, these people are they can't get outside of that. So keep in mind again, it's your wedding. You're the boss. They may know photography. They may know certain components. Unfortunately, a lot of these people, and I have to say girls, that put themselves out as wedding planners and wedding directors only know one way.
Correct.
Because they don't have any experience. They only know the quote unquote traditional way. Now, I've started writing a book, and I've already got one book written that goes into detail about traditions and where they came from. And I'm working on a pretty good book about this subject. Why is there a white dress? Why is there groomsmen and bridesmaids? Why do we have all this stuff going on? People don't know. And what people don't know is in weddings, there's a lot of tradition, but there's no rules. None. You can do what you want to do. In fact, that leads us into Alabama, where you don't need anybody to get married except a notary. You don't even have to go to probate. I've covered this, and a lot of people, because I never know who's going to watch this and who's listening, just to enlighten people again, to get married in Alabama, you can get online. Alabama Department of Health, vital records, marriage certificate. Carefully read the questions on that PDF form and carefully fill that out, because if you mess it up, they're going to reject it.
That is correct.
Fill it out online and then print out more than one copy. 3 or 4 copies. Hit the print button and get 3 or 4 copies of it printed out. You've got to have that document with you on your wedding day, and you've got to have a notary there if you want your wedding day to be the date of your marriage. Legally, it's got to be notarized. At least one of the signatures has to be notarized on that date. Okay?
That's correct.
So you don't even have to be together in Alabama to get married anymore. One of you can get the paper signed now and get their signature notarized now, and then you could wait till October 31st, Halloween, and have your signature notarized on October 31. So even though the one partner did theirs in May and the other one did it in October, Alabama's going to accept your wedding date as the one in October, the latter of the two dates. So you don't even have to be together to get married
Correct.
in Alabama. You don't ever have to go to probate. You do it online and then you mail it to any probate office in the state of Alabama with the appropriate fee, which varies from county to county. So that's the process of getting married. No ceremony required, no minister required, no photographer required, no cake required, no garter required, no clothes required.
Now, Dr. Graham, we were talking earlier about photographers and Photoshop artists. And can you explain the difference between a photographer and a Photoshop artist?
You know the answer to that.
I know the answer to that, but our brides might not.
We kind of covered this earlier because this camera, you push that button and an aperture light. There's a function in here that opens up and grabs light. It happens real quick, unless it's real dark, like she's sitting in the dark over there. So you would want it to stay open longer so that it can capture that light. But where I am, it's pretty bright, and it would push that button and it would open up and grab it like that. All right. So some people use this little viewfinder here. I like to use this one here because I'm old and it's just a pain in the butt. Whatever. Bottom line is, what you see is what you get. If you frame it and you got the lighting right, what do you need Photoshop for? On a rare occasion, and you usually don't have this problem, the red eye thing, that's a rarity if you know what you're doing. It can happen. So Photoshop can correct that just real quick. You don't even, any software will correct that.
A blemish on the face.
If you got somebody's foot in the picture that you didn't realize at the moment, you can get rid of that in Photoshop. But you can tell if I'm, like I said, those expensive photographers I talked about earlier, those phenomenal photographers, awesome. The best pictures I've seen come out of Alabama ever. And they had the pictures ready the next morning. The reason is they weren't Photoshop people. They knew what they were doing up front. So you can tell a good photographer versus a Photoshop person. Photoshop persons will take all their pictures, they're going to go through them and say, okay, I see. Yeah, I need to zoom in on that. I need to crop that out. And dang, I didn't see that shadow on the side, so they didn't know what they're doing. Is that explaining?
Yes, that does explain somewhat. Yes. I'm not saying a Photoshop artist is a bad thing to have. But what I am saying is a lot of brides get upset because their pictures are not done within a week or two. A photographer, you're probably going to get your photos to you within a week or two. A Photoshop artist, you're looking anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks, if not longer. Most Photoshop artists give 3 months. That's their average time. Ask your photographer, which do you do?
And
that is important.
Here's the problem with that. It's you can ask that, but I don't know if a lot of photographers are going to admit they do a lot of photoshopping.
Well, actually, you would be shocked. You would actually be shocked.
Bottom line is, the way you can figure out whether they're photoshopping or not is to ask them how long it's going to take to get your pictures back.
Yes.
Okay,
that is correct.
Pretty much answer it. Now they're going to go through the pictures. There's no doubt about that. I don't care who's doing it. If they're true photographers or they're still going to go through the pictures. But if all the pictures are good coming right off the camera, bingo, you're going to get them back real quick. But if you got to go through every one of them and crop and change this and change that, it's going to take a long time.
It's going to take a while. Here's my suggestion to you guys that are looking for a photographer. Get an engagement shoot. Don't hire your wedding photographer the same as test out that photographer with that engagement shoot. See how long it takes you to get those photos back. See how well you like those photos. Then, that kind of gives you a little, foot in the door.
If
And if you
you,
like
yeah,
it,
most people are planning their wedding months in advance, some a
yes,
year in advance. And so that's absolutely correct. So if you want to test them out, don't hire them for the wedding. Say, I'm looking for an engagement shoot. That
correct.
gives you experience with this person. You learn a lot about them, and you experience it all the way through because you're not waiting to your wedding to get those pictures back. Okay, and you get a good
That's correct.
idea of working with them. Keeping in
Correct.
mind that the engagement shoot is a very relaxed atmosphere compared to the
Yes,
wedding day. Okay,
correct.
um, keep that in mind. Now, something else that I think is very important at a wedding for a photographer: personality. I've
Yes.
seen some photographers that have no personality. They got their camera, stand here, stand there, do this, do that, and others that know how to smile. They're very friendly. They're very congenial. They make you feel good. And the better you feel, the better those pictures are going to turn out. So
Correct.
check that personality. Some people just put on that serious, straight face. But I'm a professional. I can be a professional and still have personality. Okay. Um,
Me personally, I love to shoot a first look before the wedding. Not all of my brides like that. And the reason I do like to do a first look before the shoot, is because that first look, you're nervous and it's the most wonderful picture in the world. But also, you're more relaxed because you've seen each other. That part's over with. But it's up to my couple as to what they want to do.
that's her preference. My preference is different. I'll
I,
explain. I'll explain. Let me explain how I work with it though. And I
I
did
know.
this Saturday. Okay. They didn't do a first look. And so after the bridal party shows up, the groom turns around. I work with the photographers, and when the bride is halfway down the aisle and the photographer's looking at the groom, I
Hmm.
turn him around and I'm coaching him all the way through. You better be very animated in this shot. Some of them I have to coach, others break up crying without being coached. Okay. But either way, you can get that first look. The neat thing about doing it to me, and everybody's got a personal preference, I get that. When they're coming down the aisle, is all the guests get to witness it.
That
It
is
gets them.
true.
It to me, it's more meaningful, profound, because everybody's looking at her, looking at him. It's like you know, and then all of a sudden, just because of the groom and the way it's going, you'll see mothers breaking out the tissue, going, okay. So, and that's very important. You gotta draw tears at the wedding. Okay.
The only reason I like to do a first look before the wedding is to get most brides want to get their pictures out of the way. Um, I'm not saying that I do not love that moment of that first look as she's walking down the aisle. That is an absolute beautiful moment. Um, I just go by usually what my brides want, and I don't complain because it's what they want.
Um, and that is something to keep in mind according to when the sun sets, according to the
Correct.
logistics and the timing of your wedding. If you're doing the wedding at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, you got plenty of daylight hours, probably no big deal that you wait to do the first look
Mhm.
because you got all this daylight hours. Some people want pictures taken at sunset. They want to see the sun setting over the lake or whatever. All those things, keep that in mind too, because there's a lot of wonderful pictures. The lower the sun gets, you get those hues of orange and red and grays in the sky. It can look wonderful.
They
If you
can.
want that, are you getting married by a lake? Uh, Thinking about all that stuff, keep in mind, brides, if most of these weddings we're doing are outdoors, I'm sorry, but none of us have control over the weather.
No,
None.
we do not.
Now, from a photographer, and you correct me if I'm wrong,
Okay.
from a photographer's viewpoint, if it's totally cloudy and there's no sun coming directly, it makes the photographer's job easier because there's no
Mhm.
shadows. So
That's
don't get
correct.
upset if it's cloudy
And
because
plus, my most favorite look in the world is when the clouds are covering the sun and I can get that beautiful sky.
mm,
I'm not
uh,
talking about a totally
mm,
cloudy sky. Um, the blue sky with the clouds covering it, the sun up. It is amazing photos. Now, on to the sunset photos. Your photographer should know about what time that sun's going to set, and she needs to get you to that area where she or he has picked out.
You don't have to know just about when. You can Google and know exactly what
Exactly
time the
when.
sun's going to set.
But you want to get them in that spot because when that sun's perfect, you only have that short amount of time to get that shot perfect. Um,
And that's something I want to, if it's important to the bride,
yes,
you should know these things before you set the time of the ceremony.
correct,
Okay? Because if you're
correct.
in the middle of a ceremony, you could miss those
You
shots.
can
You've
miss
got,
those shots.
okay? And a lot of these shots, and I'm sorry, I just have to get this out as I'm thinking about it. But when the ceremony's over with, there's usually still, no matter what you've done, there's still pictures to be made after the ceremony.
Correct,
As the wedding minister officiant, it's my job to get everybody out of the way except the ones being taken pictures.
correct,
Okay? So you should already in ahead of the ceremony, before the day of the ceremony, maybe at rehearsal or even before then, you should already have identified and notified everybody that you want in those
correct,
post ceremony photos. So that when
correct.
I tell people, go up the hill, the reception is going to be held in there, there's air conditioning and there's booze, okay, whatever. Get all those people out of the way so you've got that ceremony area. And I don't have to identify, oh, you're staying, you're staying, you're staying. They already know.
They already
Everybody
know.
else goes up there.
They got
So,
the email.
yeah. So keep all the little details to think about to work out beforehand is going to make your whole day flow a lot smoother. Also, going back to everything we've talked about, all this about knowing your photographer, what their backup plans are. What if an emergency happens in the photographer's life? Save yourself some panic. Make sure it's covered. Do they only have one camera? I'd be very concerned. Anything can happen. Things break down.
How
You
many
got to
shooters
deal with
did they
it.
have?
I've dealt with wedding venues before that I'd say something about what's your backup plan for rain, and I'd have the lady that runs the venue. Don't say that. Don't say like I got
Oh,
me saying that what's your backup? Me saying rain. I've got that kind of power. Call me God. Okay, come on. This is a real world. Stuff
oh
happens,
me.
man. I've had a tornado come through in the middle of a wedding. Believe me, anything can happen. If you're prepared for it mentally, emotionally, and in a very real way ahead of time, it's going to make your day a lot better. Because it's like, I knew that could happen. You know,
Yes.
I knew that could happen. Do you check your tires? Do you check your oil? I mean, do you maintain your vehicle before you take off down the road? Or do you just get in it and it's making weird noises and you say, I'll make it there? No, you
Did you
kind of
put gas in it?
you kind of plan ahead for the possibilities of stuff, okay? Just like the other week when they were saying that this pipeline was down because somebody hacked the system. A lot of people went out because they wanted to be prepared and they stocked up on gas. Why? Same reason they stocked up on toilet paper. I want to be able to wipe my butt if we run out of toilet paper. Same way with planning your wedding, except it's a little more, it's pretty critical if you want to, some people get very intense
I
at
almost
their
forgot about
wedding.
something. Batteries. Batteries. Does your photographer have extra batteries? Because I run into some that don't.
The whole line is like, what's their plan? Okay.
What is
And
their
and
plan?
and and I'm telling you, if you get and you post, and I don't know any of these people. I'm not knocking individuals because I don't
No.
know them. But if you post and you're on Facebook or wherever, and you say, I need a photographer for June the 7th, suggestions, and somebody comes out, they've never had a conversation with you, never talked to you, you don't, they just come out and say, I'm available, I'll do it for $500. Don't hire them because I guarantee you they have no backup plan.
No backup plan.
They hadn't done any planning because how can you price out something like that and don't have a clue about the wedding? You
Correct.
can't. You can't. Okay. So I'm trying to take care of the couples here. I'm trying to take care of the brides. I've
Correct.
seen horror stories. We both have seen a lot of horror stories happen. Okay.
It's like going in to buy a car. You don't know if it runs. You do not know any. You didn't get your Carfax on it. I mean, these are very important things that you need to know about a car that you're about to make a big purchase on.
Well,
It's almost that
this
critical.
it's even more critical than that because
Yes.
you can get the car.
You
That's
can get a mechanic for the car. You
the
cannot
bottom line is
replace a wedding
the
day.
wedding is a one-time event. You either get it or you don't. These
Correct.
events, and I encourage people at weddings. Most of these people that have any size of a wedding, guess what? They got people coming in from out of town. Some people live in
Correct.
another state. Some people have traveled an hour, 2 hours. Some people have flown in from California. Get a group photo
Mm-hmm.
while they're at the ceremony area. After the ceremony, you've done a partial recessional, come back, work with your photographer, get that group photo because you're never going to get those same people together ever
Correct.
again. Get that group photo. And
That's one of my favorites.
this is how critical it is to get this right and to ask the right questions and to know what you're doing when you hire a photographer because there's no do-overs. You're not going to get those same people together. You know how expensive it would be to restage the bridal party. You got all those dresses, you got the hairdos, you got the makeup, you got to repay for all that stuff because those pictures didn't turn out. You're going to rent the
Nope.
venue again just for those pictures. So if you think that something can't happen, we used to call it Murphy's Law. I think us older folks know what Murphy's Law is, right?
Mm-hmm. If it could go wrong, it's going to go wrong.
It may not happen today, but it happens. It really
It
does.
happens.
Now, like I said, vendors don't like me because I'm looking out for the bride. I'm looking out for the couple. You, the bride, the couple, the parents of the bride, somebody on your team, your family is paying me. So I'm going to look out for you. That's where my focus is. I'm here to serve you. And a good vendor, no matter what that vendor is going to look at it the same way. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm here to offer you a lot of suggestions. If you want the cookie cutter wedding with the cookie cutter pictures, that's what you're going to get. And that's fine. That is fair. If you want your pictures to look just like grandma's pictures, that's great. No problem. But you also need to know that you want some creative, artistic photographer that thinks outside the box, that
You
you
know what
can
my
find them.
most you know what my most all-time favorite photo is ever?
The restrooms.
Yes. We had a bride that her wedding venue had porta potties. They were there
And
for the week before for an event, and somebody forgot to remove them. There's about 8 of them.
they
And it was
weren't
at
in
the
the way
venue.
they weren't at the way of the ceremony. Let's get that out
No,
of the
they
way.
weren't. Yeah, they weren't in the way of the
They were
ceremony.
just there. So it wasn't like it was a backdrop to anything.
Right. It wasn't like that, but
But she was a little bit upset about it.
she was crying about it, and we made that fun. We had the best time making those pictures, and she still goes back and looks at those pictures today and
Yeah,
messages me.
the only reason I don't talk about that a lot is because that marriage did not last, and I blame it on
No.
those porta potties.
But she will still message me to this day and say that she loves those because her girls were in those pictures, you know?
Well,
And
we have been at it for over an hour,
yeah, we have.
just talking about photography. I think next week we'll probably talk about either the venues or DJs.
I think we should go venues.
Okay, we'll go venues. Questions to ask. If now I'm going to put a plug in your ear here. We're in a
Hmm.
conservative state. We have the marriage laws written in our state because of same-sex marriage. There are a lot of venues in Alabama that will not let you get married on their property if you're a same-sex couple. Keep that in
Correct.
mind, okay? I don't know how they deal with it when they talk to you. I'm not on that end of it. I don't know if they just fade it and say we're booked. I don't know how they do it. Some of them may be totally honest about what they're doing. Some may not be totally honest. The bottom line is be prepared. If you've got anything unique, there are still not many, but there's still a few out there that won't even deal with a interracial marriage. Okay, so
Correct.
you gotta be aware of those things, and it's more prevalent and more in rural areas. If
Yes.
the less populated areas, the more you're going to run into these. And the same is true even with photographers. There's some photographers
Hmm.
that's not going to touch you. If you don't fall into their little belief system, they're not going to touch you. So you got to be aware of that. If you fall into a category of being different, uh, it may take you longer to find the vendor that you need. So not running. I hope that what we're doing helps, especially couples. I even hope that some of the things we're talking about may help some vendors.
Correct.
Okay. I don't want to dog out vendors. I want all the vendors to make money and do
No,
well.
no,
Okay.
because there's some awesome vendors out there that are
Well,
just, I mean, they're great.
a lot of startups that could become awesome.
Awesome.
Okay.
Yes.
And if nobody's educating you, you're just winging it. So maybe some of this will help. Anytime you want to message us and ask a question, we don't mind.
We don't mind at
We'll be
all.
every Monday night, 8 p.m. Average an hour, hour and a half. We're not trying to stay up super late with this. So, any last words on your part there, girl?
Yeah, I'm about to give you my phone number. Everyone have my personal phone number. It is 205-974-7456. Yes, I have to look that phone number up because I don't ever call myself. Not on that phone anyway. But you can call
real,
me anytime.
real quick summation of everything here. From if you are looking for a photographer and you just ask a vendor, what do you charge? And you're not giving them any information. And the vendor
Hmm.
comes back and gives you a price without asking for any information. All I can say is beware. Okay. Um, some people are just, are you okay there? Some people are
Yes.
simply, as they say, price shopping, and that's fair. That is very fair that you price shop. But a good professional, serious business person is not going to just throw you a price randomly without knowing something about what they're pricing. That is very, very important. I, in my role, will ask detailed questions. How many's in the bridal party? And so forth. You will know some. If I don't know the venue, I'm going to Google the venue and look at pictures and get an idea of the venue. So all those things are very important. And that brings to mind another quick thing. Is the photographer you're talking to familiar with the venue? That helps. If they've been to that venue, they know the setting, they know the landscape. Okay, end of story there. So keep that all in mind. This will be archived everywhere we've played this. I hope it serves some benefit. Our number 888-501-6689. And we're not doing this to promote ourselves. We're truly doing this to help people because I see a lot of brides that clearly don't have a clue. And some vendors probably a little bit concerning. So you don't do, this is one
Guys, my
this is one career that you don't like a lot of repeat business. Okay. We
internet went
want you to
down.
stay married. All right. We're going to say good night and we'll see you in a week. She's gone anyway. Toodaloo.